Welcome to the second video of this series, which I think I am going to change from the initial idea, since this is more of a what happens if I try this kind of formation in regards to compression of the site, unless things go especially well or something interesting happens. The thing I will do is just show you this match, which is using the offensive formation with the defensive midfield line as the center backs, and then another in the Champions League when we reach that with the defensive version, which uses advanced midfielders instead of the strikers. During the preseason, we started poorly and picked up our form in the later parts. The PSG and the Arsenal matches were played with the defensive version, the rest with the offensive version. The first attempt with the PSG we won 2-0 with 5 shots in total, all of them on target, against around 17 by them, with only 4 on target if my memory serves right. But at the end of the match the game crashed, so I had to replay it, and in the replay we lost 1-4. The Arsenal was played with the same formation, and it was much tougher for Arsenal, who only managed to score in the last 10 minutes of the match. Regarding the rest of the games, I think most of the issues were with the defensive line, and things that you will see in the live match that I will be commentating in a moment. Basically, the main problem of the formation is for the opposition to get long passes behind the defense to go on a one-on-one against the goalkeeper. And there were some issues that I will talk about during the match that were solved, starting from the Panthrakikos game, and that worked better even since I began with them in the Eyüpspor game. I will begin with the formation as it is, like this, with half-backs in the middle. I began with the anchor man at first in both positions, but the issue that the anchor man had with this formation is that the anchor man stayed too high to pitch, and in defense the wingbacks were always much deeper than them, so the opposition strikers would sit in a space deeper than the wingbacks and more advanced than our anchor man, and it will be extremely easy for the opposition to get balls sent over their heads to their striker and get then a one-on-one formation. And I have to remove one foreign player. Okay, whereas if I use halfbacks, then they drop deeper and more or less keep the line with the wingbacks. There still tends at times to be higher than the wingbacks, but not as much as if they were set as anchormen and are anchormen. The issue with the halfback that is not present with the anchorman is that the anchorman maintain the relative position, one in the middle to the left, the other in the middle to the right. However, the halfback have a tendency of drifting to the same vertical line and stay one behind the other, to the left or to the right, to freedom I guess. So perhaps stick to position would help that a little. So what? Well, Snyder injured. I will be using that player there. No, rather, I will set this player here, and that will be the squad. So that is one of the issues. Something has to be said about those occasions, and that is that very often their strikers were in offside when the ball was sent to them, and the referee didn't signal them, to the point that during for a while, I was suspecting there was something wrong with the game. In that, if you set the time between highlights, if you didn't set full match, will not be the same as full match. It will be more or less randomly results instead of the game being played at very high velocity to, to express it some way between highlights. But in the last friendly, I tried to I tried to say, give a test to that, and I saw an offside being given, because in the other games previous to that, I never saw any offside given, even if playing incomprehensive. However, at the end, they had at least four or six or seven offsides called, but none during the highlights. However, in the full match view, there was offside given some, so that's not an issue, and my fear was not justified. So there you could see that the halfbacks in that occasion were more or less in the same line, and now in this defense they've been in line with the wingbacks. This has not been an offside because the right wingback did not keep the line with the rest and allowed their Fenerbahce striker to stand onside. In later, when we attack, you will observe that our defensive line runs up very high, compressing indeed game, the field of game very much. They go well beyond the center line. However, if you change the defensive depth, the depth of the defensive line, you will notice that there's not much difference to whether how high the pitch the new defensive line runs to, just like with center backs. And I don't know why that man was not marked at all. Perhaps I should have used opposition instructions, but this is more of an experiment on what happens rather than a competitive game to win things and get it actually working. Just an initial view on what happens. Another thing that has to be said about this formation is you really need that the defensive midfielders have to be very quick and have a very good acceleration. because if they lack acceleration, they will be constantly be beaten by the opposition. And then let's remember from the what I thought about the friendlies. With this formation, the referee has a special likelihood, like in this case, to be completely blind to offside. Watch, he is kilometers offside. The defensive line is marked by this player. He is all the way in this line. No less than 10 yards difference. However, the referee doesn't call the offside and gives the goal as valid. I wonder now if perhaps if I was seeing it in full match, it would have been called or not. In the time I was in full match, I think I didn't saw any offside not called, but that might well have been luck. And I will be betting on that it being luck that was not called any offside wrongly as onside. So now that minimal offside is called rightly because he was indeed offside by a fraction. However, that other was offside, and that is why I think that in the end this experiment tells you that well it allows you to compress the playing field. It creates a problem with the offsides with that high tendency of being overseen by the referee. Then you can see another of the F products of this formation is that it usually gives me a very high possession statistic, and another play where their striker receives the ball in acres of rather than acres kilometers offside, but the referee didn't call the offside as he should have, which happening so often as it happens with this formation still reinforces very much my idea that this is somehow bugged, and I'm not sure how is that in the other. I mean, when I saw the offside called, why was it called when any other time that it was on, it was not called? This time it was not offside, and rightly not called offside because it wasn't. Another thing about the positioning of the central defensive midfield players. As I told about you, that if you play them as anchorman instead of halfback, they tended to play much higher up the pitch than the wing backs, creating a pocket of space that was very easily exploitable by the opposition. If you play with the anchorman instead of halfbacks, then you could solve that issue of the wingbacks being deeper than the central players, changing the wingbacks to the wide midfield position and play them in a defensive duty as either wide midfielders or defensive wingers. Then they would behave more normally in comparison to a more standard formation. Staying the would-be wingers, sorry, the would-be wingbacks will stay higher than the would-be centre backs, or more or less in line. However, that might have some consequences, more consequences regarding defensive frailty, but I have not explored what could be the issues between playing with wingbacks or playing with midfielders. Speaking of which, I will make the experiment for the last half hour of this match. So advanced. Our team top is way too slow, so I will swap that there. I will play them as defensive wingers set to defend. And I will set these two to anchormen, so you can see what happens with things like set up like this. So when I played with anchormen or either halfback two, but when I saw clearly the importance of acceleration and pace for the would-be centre backs was by changing one of them to another player who is as fast, 13 pace, but better with acceleration. Change the guy with 10 acceleration to the guy with 12 or 13 acceleration. That simple substitution took down the amount of one-of-one chances provided to the opposition to less than half what would have been at the rate that they had it before. So let's say in the 60 minutes I played before doing the subs, they had like 8 chances. After I made the change, the sub, they only got one more chance, because whenever they had the ball sent to the striker behind the defensive line with that other player, then they consistently catched up to him in time to tackle him before he could shoot against our goal. And another consequence of this tactic is, since more than 90% of the chances generated against you will be more or less like that, a player running behind the defense, it will turn in either of two options. The first option is your defense catches up to them and tackle the ball away from them. The other choice is they will shot in a one-on-one against your goalkeeper with little interference from your defense. Hence, most of the chances will be most of the shots will be shots on target. This is the exceptions in which 9 shots have been only 5 on target, but in the previous games has been all shots on target. Maybe one off target, but if they get a shot, they get a 1-on-1 and it's on target. So you need a goalkeeper who is great in managing those situations. I would say apart from a very high 1-on-1 attribute, they need a very good, extremely good positioning as well as anticipation, balance, I would say, and agility to keep their position where they will be more efficient to cover spaces and make the shot more difficult for the opponent, and to be faster moving from one side to the other as the opponent as the opposition striker tries to dribble from to one side or the other. And if you think on using this system with a defensive line formed by defensive midfield players and wingbacks, you really need that the central players be very, very, very fast and very good with acceleration. Because if they are anything that is not lightning fast, you will have things like this happen one time and a second time and a third time again and again. A lot of one-on-one chances that your players can't reach to, because in so many occasions the offside won't be called. For offsides, we saw not one during highlights. So what I will do now is conclude that unless you have that kind of player, this tactic is not one that can work, or that will need a lot of work to get working. And for the repetition, probably the opposition instructions to close down certain players will be better. And I was saying the team instruction to close down more often. And I think I didn't show that. Yeah, I have the harsher opponents that has not helped. Much higher defensive line and use offside trap. I think the difference between the much higher defensive line and much deeper defensive line, it is indeed noticeable, but it's not very much. With much deeper, the defensive line will run up more or less around here. Whereas if you set them to much higher, they can get around here. So the next game will be when we reach the UEFA Champions League groups against a strong side with the defensive version. I think another thing that I might do is to maybe making a versus game. So I will see it another when the time comes. Get a team with defensive midfielders that are at least 16 in acceleration and pace, and see how it works with them. This will be all for today. Like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. Don't do anything if you feel like doing nothing. Just like if you feel like it's something to dislike. Goodbye, see you next time, and thanks for watching.